Hello, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all of the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Welcome into a Yarn and Yarns extra video today. I thought I'd chat to you about my first ever pair of knitted socks. They're quite amusing, which is why I'm chuckling to myself. Actually, I thought I might chat to you about my first few pairs of knitted socks because it's, looking back, it's quite an interesting journey for me, so maybe you'll find it interesting too. The reason that I've been prompted to chat about this today is because, like many of us who are trying to stay home as much as possible, I'm finally getting round to doing some of those jobs at home that I've been wanting to do for a while, but just for one reason or another never seem to find time for. And one of those things was to organise my hand knitted socks. Now, I know to a lot of non-knitters that probably sounds like quite a sad activity, but I really enjoyed it. I bought myself some of those drawer organisers with the little sections so I could roll up my socks nicely and have them all fit into the drawer. Or at least that was the plan. I seem to have more socks than fits into the drawer, but hey, I will deal with that problem at some point, I'm sure. So up until recently, my socks have just been living in a box on top of my chest of drawers, and they've just been overflowing everywhere, so I thought it was high time to get them organised. And while I was pairing them all up and trying to organise them, I came across my first ever pair of socks. So that's what's prompted me to hop on and chat to you about that today. That, coupled with the fact that there were a couple of comments on this week's vlog where I showed off a few new sock cast-ons where people commented that they're just getting into their sock journey. So I thought this might be a good time to chat about mine. So my first ever pair of socks were, in all honesty, a bit of a disaster. I had probably been back into knitting for a good few years, and I think I had recently discovered podcasts and a lot of people were knitting socks, so I thought, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. And I purchased a copy of Pom Pom magazine, and this one is from spring 2015, so these socks were knitted about 5 years ago. There's actually two pairs of socks in this particular issue of Pom Pom, but I fell in love with the Fika socks, and they just look so charming, really classy, dare I say. I talked about classiness on my Monday vlog, didn't I? But here they are. You can see that. So as you can see, they're a ribbed leg and a plain foot with a really fun contrast detail. And I love this picture. You know, you just want to be this girl hanging around in her dungarees looking cool with her hand knitted socks, or at least that's what I wanted. But of course it wasn't meant to be. I am not that cool and my socks are not great. So I trundled down to my local craft shop. Where I lived at the time there wasn't a knitting shop as such, but there was a craft shop that sold a bit of yarn, a bit of fabric, a bit of everything really. And they had some Regia sock yarn, so I picked up a ball and started knitting away. And of course these socks were a bit of a labour of love because they're 1x1 twisted rib all down the leg, so I set myself a little bit of a task to start with. There were some notes on my Ravelry project page for these socks that make me chuckle now because I am a larger person. So I figured that I would probably need to adjust these socks. Obviously the lovely model modelling these Fika socks has a nice slender figure, and so I figured with my bigger legs I'd need to probably cast on more stitches and go up a needle size. That was my logic. So I went up to a 2.75mm needle and I cast on I think 72 stitches. Although it's okay in the leg of the sock, for some reason I decided I needed to go up even further for the foot of the sock, and I think I went up to like a 3mm or even a 325mm. So my socks are very odd shaped. The yarn is just not right for the simplicity of that sock pattern, and yeah, they just turned out way too big. So here are my Fika socks. So as you can see, even back then I was attracted to really bright colours, and I should have known better, because the sample in that pattern is obviously knit with a nice plain colour, which shows off the ribbing nicely and shows off that foot detail. But no, of course, I had to go for a nice yellow sock with these pattern details in them, and yeah, this does not look good at all. It looks completely out of whack with the leg, which I think is what makes it funny. Not the fact that the foot's wide, because, you know, I have wide feet and, you know, that's not an issue. It's just the fact that, yeah, it just looks a bit crazy with that skinny little leg. And then, of course, as you can see, I decided to go for that contrast, and I'm not entirely sure where I got this blue from, whether I'd already bought another ball of sock yarn. But I put in the contrast, and yeah, I'm not sure what's going on here, because on this leg my contrast is laying nicely. On this leg I've got like a garter ridge, so I've obviously done a purl row there. Not sure what the pattern calls for, but I'm sure it wasn't that. And then the eagle-eyed amongst you will already have spotted what's going on here. So I knit my socks on double pointed needles, and I think I'd knit a couple of hats on DPNs before, but I wasn't really confident with DPNs. The anatomy of a sock was not really familiar to me at the time. So as you will see, the placement of this ridge is in completely the wrong place. These are pretty much a disaster all round. Shall I put them on and you can see? So yeah, here they are. This one definitely seems to be a bit tighter than this one. You can see here, look at all this bagginess. I don't know whether I adjusted the needle size because I realised these ones were crazy, or whether my tension just got tighter, who knows. And then on this one, the contrast detail does kind of sit on top of my foot, and that one, well, yeah, that's another story. The legs fit okay, but that's because they're a 1x1 rib, so there's plenty of stretchiness in there, but they've definitely got more sort of bagginess to them than I would like. So yes, that is my tale of woe of my first ever pair of socks. They were a bit of a disaster. They don't really fit, although I have to say I do wear them sometimes in bed. They're a nice pair of comfy bed socks, and yeah, there's definitely a size difference between those two. Look, if I hold those 2 feet up, you can see this one here is much bigger, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Now I've got this magazine out, I'd really like to revisit those socks and make a nice pair. I've got some lovely tonal yarns that would be much better, much more suited for that lovely pattern than the crazy colour that I chose. Look from the pattern, like the contrast stripe is a sort of garter ridge, so perhaps that second sock that I showed was right and the first one was wrong. So yes, maybe I shall revisit the Fika and make a pair that's much more fitting and has that lovely contrast as is meant to, rather than the craziness that mine turned out to be. Now you'd think after that first disaster I might have been a little bit disheartened and maybe left off socks for a while, but I cast on pretty much straight away again for another pair of socks. And not only did I go for a pair of socks, but I decided to go for a patterned pair of socks as well. Now this is a pattern called Skewer, and I want to say it's by Claire Devine, but I'll link my sock project, I'll link my Ravelry project page below, so you'll be able to find out the details of these socks from there. And it's a lovely lace sock, and this was the second ever pair of socks I made. So much more adventurous than the Fika, and I used some lovely yarn from Countess Ablaze, I think this one was. I just started discovering indie dyers as well, and as you can see it's got this gorgeous pattern that loops up and around the sock, and these fit lovely. So yeah, even though my first pair of socks were a disaster, I obviously learnt a lot and felt confident enough to tackle something a little bit more complicated. I'm not sure if I worked magic loop with these or stuck with DPNs. I'm a magic looper these days, but yeah, it's quite amusing, isn't it, how I thought after this disaster I could go straight for a nice patterned pair of socks. But yeah, these fit really nicely, and I also use some really nice yarn. The third pair of socks that I knitted, I've got 4 to show you, are still to this day one of my favourite pair of socks that I've ever knit. And this is a pattern by Rachel Coopy called Escarina, and it's from her collection. I think it's called If Granny Weatherwax Knit Socks, but it's her collection inspired by the Discworld novels of Terry Pratchett, and this is the Escarina colourway. Escarina is a fabulous character whom I adore from the book Equal Rights. And I knit this from some Yantan Tethery yarn, and Helen is one of my all-time favourite dyers. I've got quite a few skeins of hers in my stash, and I've knit with quite a few of her yarns too, and she does beautiful dye work. I can't remember what this colourway was called, but again I'll link my project page below so you can go and check it out. But it's this beautiful pattern by Rachel Coopy, this all over lace work, and these are in my kind of special sock pile, so I do wear them quite often, but I don't wear them out and about in my boots. Obviously I find that indie dyed yarns are often made on merino, which is not super hard wearing for me. With the way that I wear my socks, I'm very harsh on my socks. I've spoken about this before. I wear them out and about all over the place in my boots, just barefooted around the house, sometimes in the garden. So I'm not the gentlest or the kindest to my socks. So these are my special kind of Sunday socks. If I know I'm not going anywhere and I just want to get cozy in the house, then these are usually the pair that I reach for first. I just love them. I love everything about them. I love the design. I love the combination of the yarn and the design. And yeah, I'm just really proud of these socks, I guess. And the long cuff is really nice. It helps the socks fit really nicely with that beautiful lacy pattern all the way down too. Yeah, love these. So they were my third pair of socks. So I went from disastrous Fika socks to successful skewer socks and one of my all-time favourite Escarina. So after knitting the Fika socks, which were a disaster, and then going for the pattern socks, I think I might have knit one more pair of socks after the Escarina socks. I think they were also a pattern pair of socks. I decided I wanted to go back and try and get to grips with this vanilla sock thing. Again, it was just as I was kind of discovering podcasts, and a lot of people seem to have their own vanilla sock recipe. So I thought I needed to try and crack that for myself. And I did that with the help of this book by Claire Devine called Sock Anatomy. And there are some lovely sock patterns in this book. There are some great diagrams with the anatomy of a sock, which probably would have really helped me before I embarked on the Fika socks. But I decided to knit the basic pattern from here, which is called Flexor, and I did it exactly in the yarn that was suggested in the pattern too. So this is the West Yorkshire Spinners Blue Tit colourway, paired with the Butterscotch colourway, I think the yellow is called. And I knit my first ever successful pair of vanilla socks. So here they are, with an afterthought or a forethought here. I think you go back and put that in afterwards. I love this colourway. I've still got squirreled away in my stash the other half of ball of this, because I knew as soon as I knit this up that if I ever wore through these socks I'd need another pair. So I'm sure one day I'll knit another pair. But this yarn has held up beautifully. There's definitely some fuzzing and some felting, but I have probably during sock wearing season, and I wear my socks pretty much all year round. At the moment, when I'm home and I'm wandering around barefoot a lot, I'm not wearing my socks as much as I usually do, but I've usually got my socks on even in the summer. These are definitely in heavy rotation when it's sock wearing season. I probably wear these. I mean, I've got a lot of knitted socks. If you're interested in seeing my full collection, or if you want me to chat about some of my favourite sock yarns and do a bit of a sock yarn review, then let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to do that at some point. But yeah, these are definitely always in my rotation, and I probably wear them at least once a fortnight, if not more often in the winter. and they've held up really well considering they're about 5 years old. And there's definitely some fuzzing and a little bit of felting in places, but you can't really beat it for the longevity, the hard wearingness of the yarn. And as I've already mentioned, I'm pretty hard going on my socks, so these ones get washed in the washing machine as well. They don't get any special treatment, they just get thrown in with the rest of the washing, and yeah, they're still looking pretty pristine. So yes, the origins of my sock knitting journey. So if you are about to embark on your sock knitting journey and your first pair don't work out quite right, hopefully like me, you won't get discouraged, you'll learn a lot and you will be a sock knitter forevermore. I love knitting socks. So that's everything for today. I hope you have enjoyed my little journey down sock knitting memory lane. Until we get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.